Welcome Ramanand to this edition of Smart Levers.
Thanks, Harish.
So today we're going to talk about something called as story structures, and it is not stories, it is not storytelling. So what is story structures all about?
Harish, if I were to ask you what is common to Harry Potter, to the film Lagan, and say to the Ramayana, what would you say?
Somebody who's starting from a low point, suddenly gets something like a call that no, I have to fight against evil. I have to fight against something, and then there is a journey of the hero. Where in the Ramayana it is actually a journey. I think in a lot of other movies and stories, again it's actually a physical journey. But in the case of Lagan, it is not a physical journey, but you can see that it is a journey, right? You're moving
Correct.
from one point to the other. Is
Right.
that what you are looking for?
Absolutely. When we consume stories, we often are so caught up in the characters and the conflicts and the emotion that we appreciate the art behind storytelling, but sometimes we don't realize there is also a sort of very smart science to storytelling, either inadvertently or very deliberately. All the great storytellers have always used something called as a structure, uh, to which provides the skeleton, the spine for any story. So, like you rightly said, the likes of a Harry Potter series or the Ramayana, they have this hero who discovers something about themselves, gathers allies, has to overcome a villain. Sometimes a villain is internal, sometimes it is a external person, a character who presents themselves, and there is this element of a journey, and you as an audience go along with it. So story structures are these unseen skeletons, unseen parts behind a story that give the story a lot of weight. It gives it a lot of coherence. And so for anyone who is interested in storytelling, if you peel behind the plot, the characters, the content, you will see that there is something that has propped it up very nicely and lends a lot of stability and strength. So that's what we mean by a story structure.
Basically, it's a science and not really an art, is what you're trying to tell me.
Yes, I mean it's a mixture of both science and art, but this lends the art of storytelling a lot of deliberateness. So, just to take what we discussed just now, it's classically called as the hero's journey. So, perhaps the best example of this is the Star Wars franchise, right? You see Luke Skywalker, small, not so significant person on a not so significant planet, suddenly realizes that he's more than an ordinary person. So, and he goes through his entire journey. And this has been actually been sketched by several people to show what is called as a hero's journey. Now, there's another example of a structure, and there are several structures. There's not just one or two. It numbers in the 50s and the hundreds. So, there's another famous storyteller called Bernadette Jiwa, who's a storytelling coach as well. So she talks about the story Scaffold. It consists of what she calls five C's. I won't go into the five C's today, but each of those C's, starting from the context in which the story appears, right down to the conclusion or the change that you realize has happened by the end of the story, lends itself a certain spine. And so whenever you are trying to marry the art of storytelling with something that lends it a lot of stability, you would ideally choose a structure very deliberately or play around with that structure. Because one big challenge that any budding storyteller will have is that I've got a lot of things I want to say, I've got a lot of characters, but how do I place them? How do I structure them? How do I sequence them? And your answer to that is pick a structure, pick a story structure, and that will help you progress.
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway for me in terms of the distinction between the art and science of storytelling is that when you have these structures, things can be more repeatable. Newcomers, newbies to the whole idea can also actually just latch on to one of these frameworks. Be diligent about following that framework, and you can get that story
Right.
structure built.
Yeah, so if you're a newcomer as an artist, the blank canvas can scare you. So
Right.
a structure like this starts giving you things to fill in. But then when you become a great artist, you can go back to that blank canvas and break all the rules of the structure.
Right, and then you become Christopher Nolan, but let's not go there. So, why is it important for uplevelers to know about story structures?
Right. So over the last few years, there's been this increase in interest in storytelling, and appropriately so, because stories and humans are intimately connected. We share ideas, we influence each other through stories, and this has been going on for millennia. So as uplevelers, you want to add storytelling to your Swiss Army knife, the uplevelers toolkit, as we call it in our case. And so if you want to be a storyteller, and there's always a starting point. That blank canvas of telling a story is going to stare at you. So having some knowledge of these story structures can help you put together the right kind of a presentation, tell your origin story. Or let's say you're an innovator and you want to talk about a new idea that you want to convey to the world, but the world is still not sure of what you want to say. So putting it in the form of a story is one of those recommended ways in which innovators can make pitches, or leaders can influence, or even someone who's recruiting of someone to their team can use to talk about the culture of their organization using well chosen stories. So the upleveler is also going to add storytelling to his toolkit, and that's why you will need story structures to start implementing storytelling.
Right, and how do we use this in our work?
Yeah, so ever since we've discovered the power of storytelling for ourselves, we've been, helping leaders, for instance, spread the culture in their organization. So uh, when you have a clearly designed culture manifesto, as we call it, consisting of your mission, your values, what you stand for, what makes you distinct, oftentimes expressing this in the form of a story can mean the difference between someone understanding your vision and your manifesto versus not. So because we've been recommending storytelling, uh, story structures become very powerful tools to quickly create stories and start disseminating them. You don't want to spend too much time hiring a professional or a very seasoned storyteller for all kinds of stories. So the everyday story that you want your employees to be able to tell, if you can help them structure these stories quickly, then they can make progress faster. They don't have to really become a Christopher Nolan of storytelling. They can be your bard. They can be the man under the tree narrating stories and spreading that folklore. So we have we've gotten a lot of storytelling to our work, whether it be dedicated internal sites that have folklore related to the organization, or helping individuals do personal branding with the help of well chosen stories about who they are, what they represent, what got them here so far. Uh, all of these have been situations where these story structures have come in very, very handy.
Right, and who do you think will benefit from knowing about story structures, and in what kind of situations?
Right. So if you're an individual upleveler trying to take charge of your own social capital, for example, uh, these stories about your first year at work, or what it was to be a student and suddenly fail an exam, and you overcame that and that built your character for you. These are all powerful, authentic stories that you should be telling. But all of us, are either sometimes shy of expressing ourselves on social media. We don't know how to go about this. We're worried about structuring the story such that people will enjoy it. So, in the realm of social capital, storytelling is a very powerful tool, and a structure like this can again make the difference between you hitting publish and sitting on that anecdote for life. So for individuals, you can use this for personal branding. For teams, leaders are now becoming sensitive to the advantages of storytelling, whether it is for recruiting, whether it is for retention, because you want to keep reinforcing the message, the cultural message, using stories. So leaders can use these kinds of story structures. It could be how we, encountered a major challenge and how we came out of that. What led to the founding of this company? What was the story behind this product? Everything has a story, and therefore the leaders need to be able to tell that.
Right. On that note, Ramanand, let's continue this story. It's not something which is going to end right now. Maybe this chapter ends now, but the story of our smart levers and how uplevelers can benefit from using smart levers will continue on to the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you.